The first whisper. It started as a murmur, so soft, so subtle, I thought it was just stress. Maybe lack of sleep. The kind of thing you shrug off with a coffee and a yawn. But the whisper grew louder, clearer, and then it started saying things no one else could know. Things I didn't even remember until I did. That's when I realized it wasn't my voice, and it wasn't in my head. It was something else, and it was waiting for me to listen. The clock blinked 3:12 a.m. in harsh red digits. Maya lay wide-eyed in the dark, her blanket pulled up to her chin as if fabric alone could shield her from the gnawing anxiety that clung to the air. Outside, a cold wind scraped against a window pane like fingernails on glass. She had woken up again. Same time, same feeling. Her heart beat like a war drum, and the room felt too quiet, unnaturally quiet. She sat up slowly, her ears straining. Then she heard it, a whisper, faint, barely there, like breath sliding across the back of her neck. Don't trust him. She froze. Who? She whispered back before she could stop herself. Silence. She clutched her blanket tighter. Maybe it was a dream, a remnant of her overworked brain. Finals were next week, and between caffeine, minimal sleep, and binge studying, hallucinations weren't out of question. She lay back down, shutting her eyes tightly. Just sleep. Sleep will fix everything. It didn't. The next day dragged on like a half-remembered nightmare. Maya wandered through her classes like a ghost, detached, silent, distracted. She barely noticed when her best friend Olivia waved a hand in front of her face. Earth to Maya? Hello? Are you okay? Yeah. Sorry. Just tired. You sure? You look like you haven't slept in days. Maya offered a weak smile. Just stress. You know how it is. She didn't mention the whisper. She didn't mention the voice that returned again last night at exactly 3:12 a.m. Clearer this time, more urgent. He's lying. He hurt her. She didn't know who he was. She didn't know who her was either. But something about the words made her bones feel cold. Too specific to be random. That evening, she avoided her room as long as she could. She lingered in the kitchen, cleaned the already spotless counter, double-checked her email, and finally crawled into bed around 1:30 a.m. She put in her earbuds and played ambient music on a loop, tried to drown out everything. She fell asleep eventually. But at 3:12 a.m., her eyes snapped open again. The music had stopped. Her phone was dead. He buried her in the orchard. Her fingers are still curled. Maya gasped. She sat bolt upright, heart thundering. The whisper wasn't in the room. It wasn't outside. It was inside her head, not like a thought, but like a foreign presence, hissing in her ear without breath. No, 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 she mumbled, clutching her head. This isn't real. This isn't. Go to the roots. Dig. He'll deny it, but you'll see. The voice was not hers, and it didn't feel like her thoughts. It felt like someone else had moved in, wearing her skull like a mask and whispering through it. She didn't sleep the rest of the night. By morning, Maya looked like a walking corpse. She didn't shower, didn't eat. She just stared at the wall, mind buzzing with fragments she didn't understand. That was until she Googled orchard murder, half as a joke, half out of growing dread. To her horror, she found something. 10 years ago, a girl named Celine Park went missing in her town. Last seen walking home near an abandoned orchard on the edge of the old highway. The case went cold. No body was ever found. Maya's hands trembled. It couldn't be real. Coincidence. The brain could be suggestible, right? Still, she had to see it, just to prove it's nothing. The orchard was even more haunting in daylight. The trees were crooked and overgrown, their gnarled roots clawing up from the earth like bones trying to escape. Maya walked deeper into the orchard, guided by what exactly? Instinct? A pull? Or the voice? She stopped near the center, where the trees formed a tight ring. Here, the whisper returned. Soft, clear. She's still waiting. Maya stared down at the ground. Her legs moved on their own. She dropped to her knees and began to dig with her bare hands. Minutes passed. Her nails split, dirt packed under her fingers. She dug like a woman possessed. And then Her hand hit something hard. She screamed and jumped back, panting. It was a fragment of bone. Tiny, curved, a finger bone. She scrambled backward, heart hammering in her throat. Told you. Maya ran. Back at home, Maya collapsed in the hallway, dry heaving. The bone, the voice, the name, Celine Park. How did she know? How could something buried for a decade speak through her thoughts? She needed help, someone to talk to, someone who believed her. So she called Olivia. Olivia came over immediately. Maya explained everything, hesitantly, rambling but honest. She expected laughter, disbelief, maybe even anger. But Olivia sat in stunned silence. Maya, she whispered, you're not crazy. You believe me? Olivia hesitated. No, but that orchard? My mom told me to never go there. Said it was cursed. She knew the Park family. Celine went to her school. Everyone thought her boyfriend did it, but they never proved anything. Maya's blood froze. What was his name? Olivia bit her lip. He works at the bookstore now. You probably met him. Jason Reed. Jason, the man who always smiled too much. The one who remembered her name after one visit. The one who gave her a free book just because. He hurt her. The whisper again, louder now. The next few nights got worse. The voice didn't wait for 3:12 anymore. It whispered while she brushed her teeth, while she ate cereal, while she sat in class. He keeps souvenirs. In a box. Ask him what's in a locked drawer. He watches you sleep. He knows you know. Maya was unraveling, but she couldn't stop now. She returned to the bookstore 2 days later, shaky but resolved. Jason stood behind the counter, smiling that same friendly smile. Hey there, Maya. You okay? You look pale. Did you know Celine Park? She asked. Jason blinked. Celine? That's a name I haven't heard in years. Why? Maya stared him down. You dated her, didn't you? His smile faltered. Only for a little while, he said slowly. She went missing. Tragic, really. Why are you asking about her? Maya leaned in. Did you bury her in the orchard? Jason's face darkened. The room seemed to chill. I think you should leave. He's lying. He smiled when he did it. Maya turned and walked out, but she wasn't finished. She was going to the police. She just didn't know that Jason had already started following her. Maya didn't go home. Her legs moved on autopilot, taking her 3 blocks down to the police station. Her fingers trembled as she pushed the heavy glass door open, walking up to the reception desk where a tired-looking officer blinked up at her. She felt like she was floating outside her body, unreal, lightheaded. I need to report something, she said. What kind of something? She hesitated. A murder? That got his attention. They put her in a small room. 2 detectives came in, notepads ready, one younger with a nervous energy, and the other old, hard-eyed, tired of everything. She told them everything. The voice, the whispers, the orchard, the bones she dug up. She even gave them Jason's name. They listened. They didn't interrupt. But she could feel in the air the growing disbelief, the quiet eye contact between them. When she was done, the older detective finally spoke. Miss, how long have you been hearing this voice? Her stomach dropped. I'm not making it up. We didn't say you were. They didn't believe her. She left with a card and a pat on the shoulder. She stood outside the station in the cold wind, eyes stinging. The voice was quiet now, maybe even smug, like it had known this would happen. They won't help you. They never helped her. She covered her ears. Shut up. Shut up. You saw the bone. You know I'm real. It had a point. Back in her room that night, she didn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, waiting, and right on time, at 3:12, the whisper returned, low, curling into her mind like smoke. He has another box. He kept something. You'll find it. Her breathing grew shallow. Where? Back of the shop. Small room. Bottom drawer. Red key. The next morning, she returned to the bookstore. Jason was behind the counter, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't accused him of murder the day before. He looked up and smiled. You okay? He asked. I left my bag here yesterday, she lied. Mind if I check in the back? I might have dropped it behind the counter. He hesitated. She smiled weakly, pretending to be embarrassed. I just don't want to lose my notes. Please. He nodded slowly. All right, but just the hallway. The rest is staff only. Got it. She slipped past, heart thudding. The hallway was dim and smelled like old paper. There were 2 doors, one to a restroom, the other slightly ajar. She pushed the second one open and stepped inside. The room was small, cluttered, filled with boxes and shelves. A desk sat in the corner, old and worn. She rushed to it, dropping to her knees. Bottom drawer. Red key. She yanked the handle. It was locked. Behind the books. Right side. She pulled a stack of ledgers off the shelf. There, wedged between 2 dusty binders, was a small red key. She opened the drawer. Inside was a wooden box with brass hinges. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were photographs, printed on matte paper, yellowed with age. Her breath caught in her throat. One showed Celine, eyes wide, lifeless. The next was of her, Maya, sleeping. She dropped the box and stumbled backward. You shouldn't be in here. Jason's voice was behind her. She turned slowly. He stood in the doorway, hands clenched at his sides. That same smile, but now it was wrong. Crooked, too wide. You've been listening, he said, hearing her. Maya backed away. She's telling me the truth. Jason's smile faltered. She always does. The way he said it made her skin crawl. He wasn't shocked, she knew. He wasn't even angry. He was amused. She likes to whisper, doesn't she? He said. Says all sorts of things. Makes you think you're the only one. Maya's mind spun. You hear her too? He nodded slowly. For years. A shiver traced her spine. She came to me first. Long before she came to you. But I ignored her. I tried to shut her out. Then she got louder. Meaner. She made me see things. Do things. You killed her, Maya whispered. He shrugged. She wanted it. No one wants that. Jason stepped closer. She won't stop, you know. Not now. Not ever. She just moves to someone new. Maya reached for the box, clutching it to her chest. She told me to find this. She's manipulating you. She wants justice. Jason laughed. No, she wants control. Maya bolted past him, shoving him hard. He stumbled back, and she sprinted through the hallway, out the front door, heart thundering. She didn't stop running until she got home. That night, the voice was different. Louder, sharper. It pulsed inside her skull like a migraine. He'll come for you. He won't let you leave. They never do. She couldn't take it. Her skin itched. Her vision blurred. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She locked her door, closed the blinds, piled furniture against the entrance. And still, she heard it. You can stop him. You have to, or you'll be next. The next day, she didn't go to class. Didn't eat. The world narrowed to one thing, ending it, stopping Jason. Before he stopped her, he'll try again. He always does. He's done it before. There are others. The whisper filled every corner of her mind. She went back to the police, this time with the photographs. They looked at her differently now, took her seriously, filed a report, said they'd follow up, but she knew they wouldn't be fast enough. That night, she packed a knife under her pillow and left her lamp on. She didn't sleep. She just waited. At 3:12 a.m., she heard the doorknob jiggle. She slid out of bed, clutching the knife. The voice didn't speak now. It didn't need to. She stepped into the hallway, silently, barefoot. Shadows danced under the crack of the front door. And then, glass shattered. Jason stepped through her window like a shadow. Slow, silent, his eyes locked on hers. I warned you, he said. She lunged. They struggled in the dark. The knife slipped from her hand. Jason pinned her to the floor, his hand around her throat. Her vision blurred. Use the lamp. The voice again, urgent. She reached up, grabbed a heavy glass lamp, and smashed it against his head. He collapsed with a groan. She ran. Police arrested Jason an hour later. Inside his apartment, they found more photos. A map of the orchard. Notes. Names of other women. It made headlines for days. Maya became the center of the storm. A hero. They called her. But she knew better. Because the whisper never stopped. He wasn't the only one. Some still walk free. I'll show you. The voice was with her now. Always. And she wasn't sure if she hated it. Or needed it. Maya didn't leave town, though every bone in her body told her she should. Every day since Jason's arrest, reporters tried to catch her outside her apartment, shoving microphones into her face, desperate to hear the girl who heard the dead. Her phone never stopped ringing. Her name was in headlines she never wanted. But none of it mattered, not the fame, not the pitying looks, not the attention, because the voice had changed. It was sharper now, cold, no longer the desperate whisper of a girl asking for help. They covered it up. He wasn't alone. You think justice is done? They all knew. It whispered all night, sometimes all day. No longer at 3:12. No schedule. No pause. At first, Maya resisted. She shouted into pillows. She took long, scalding showers. She tried sleeping with the TV on, hoping to drown it out. Nothing helped. And worse, she started seeing things. A flash of red in the mirror when she turned away. A reflection that moved a second too slow. Fingernail scratches down the bathroom wall she didn't remember making. She knew something had latched onto her. Something that wouldn't leave. And it wanted more. A week later, Olivia showed up unannounced. She looked pale, shaken, wringing her hands as she stepped inside. You didn't hear? Hear what? Jason, they found him. Maya blinked. What do you mean? He was in custody. Was. They transferred him to a psychiatric holding facility. Last night, he hanged himself. Maya stared. He used a piece of curtain cord. No one saw it coming. They said he wasn't on suicide watch. No signs. Her stomach turned to ice. He was weak, the voice whispered. He broke. But we're not done. Maya didn't go to the funeral. She didn't even leave her apartment for days after that. She sat in the dark, curtains drawn, phone off, lights off. The voice filled the silence, spinning its web of stories and names and secrets. She wrote everything it said in a red notebook, page after page. The writing grew more frantic, messier, desperate. She filled the first notebook in 3 days. On the fourth night, she was brushing her teeth when she noticed something new in the mirror. Something behind her. A girl. Pale skin. Bloodied lips. Hollow eyes. She turned, but no one was there. You saw me, the voice said. Maya dropped the toothbrush. You're real, she whispered. You made me real. The next night, Maya dreamed of the orchard. But it was night, and she wasn't alone. She stood over an open grave, the girl standing beside her. The same girl from the mirror. Celine. Her face was blank. Her eyes empty. There are others, she said. They helped him. Maya woke up gasping. Her hands were covered in dirt. The sheets stained brown. Her window was open. She didn't remember leaving. 2 days later, Detective Holland knocked on her door. Older man. Tough eyes. The same one who first dismissed her story. Can we talk? He asked. She let him in. He looked around the cluttered apartment. The notebooks on the table, the empty dishes, the drawn curtains. I shouldn't be here officially, he said, but something's bothering me. Jason's case. He nodded. There's a photograph that was missed the first time. It was found at his place. Not one of the victims. He pulled it from a folder. Maya froze. It was a group shot. 4 men, all smiling in front of the orchard. Jason was one of them. So was Holland. She looked up at him slowly. You were friends. Briefly. College. I didn't know what he'd done. The voice screamed inside her skull. Liar. He was there. Maya flinched. Her vision blurred. You okay? Holland asked. I need air. She stood, staggering toward the door. Maya, wait. Get out, she whispered. He stepped back, confused, raising his hands. Look, if you remember anything else, call me, all right? She closed the door on him. The whisper hissed. He helped hide it. He buried one of them himself. Not all graves are shallow. That night, she dreamed again. This time, it wasn't the orchard. It was an attic, dark, smothering, cobwebs and dust. A figure in the corner, bound, struggling, gagged. Jason stood over her, and behind Jason, Detective Holland. He watched, silent. Then he walked away and closed the door. Maya jolted awake. Her body was damp with sweat. Her pillow was missing. She found it under the bed, smeared with dirt. Dig. The next morning, Maya returned to the orchard with a shovel. Rain soaked her to the bone, but she didn't care. She followed the voice's directions. 13 steps north of the old stone well, under a crooked elm tree. She dug for hours. At last, she hit something. Wood. A box. She pulled it free with shaking hands. Inside were bones, smaller than before. Child-sized. A plastic bracelet. Faded blue. Maya sobbed. He watched her die, the whisper said. He did nothing. That makes him guilty, too. She called the police. They found 3 more sites over the next 2 weeks, each one with remains, each one matching missing persons reports from over a decade ago. And each time, the voice had led her. Detective Holland retired quietly, never arrested, never charged, but the whisper never let her forget. He's one of them. He walks free while they rot. Maya couldn't take it anymore. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Everywhere she turned, the voice followed, echoing off the walls, rising out of silence like smoke through cracks. She sat in the dark, holding the red notebook. Every page was filled. Celine, Jason, Holland, more names now, more clues. But the voice wasn't done. There's one more. He lives in the blue house, on Mercer Street. He smiled at her, too. Maya closed her eyes. She saw him, an older man with a limp, always outside his porch, always watching. She'd walked past his house 100 times. Go. It was raining again when Maya found herself standing across the street from the blue house on Mercer. The windows glowed warm, inviting even, but she knew better now. Warmth was a trick. So was silence. So were smiles. The man who lived there, Samuel Beck, was retired. A substitute teacher, the whisper said. The voice had grown quieter lately, like it was waiting, expecting her to know what came next. She watched from behind a parked car, her red notebook clutched tight in one hand, the other hand deep in her coat pocket wrapped around her phone. She didn't know if she'd call anyone. She just needed it near. He buried her in the basement, behind the furnace, under the concrete. Her stomach churned. She could leave. Right now. Walk away, never look back. But she wouldn't. Not after what she saw. Not after what she knew. She crossed the street and walked up to the door. It opened before she knocked. Samuel Beck stood there, older than she remembered. Gray hair, soft eyes, a cane in one hand. He smiled like he'd been expecting her. Maya, he said gently, coming out of the rain. She didn't ask how he knew her name. The house smelled like cinnamon. There were photos on every wall. Kids, grandkids, weddings. The kind of place that should have felt safe. But it didn't. Her skin crawled. Samuel led her to a chair by the fireplace. You want tea? No. He nodded slowly, settling into the armchair opposite her. The fire cracked between them. But the warmth didn't reach her. You've been busy, he said. She didn't speak. I know what you're looking for. Still, silence. He leaned forward. Did she tell you about me? Maya's eyes narrowed. She's been whispering to a lot of people over the years. Not everyone listens. But you did. She finally spoke. You knew Jason. Samuel nodded. We all did. He was the problem, but not the only one. He's lying, the whisper hissed. He's worse than Jason. He started it. Maya tightened her grip on the notebook. "You're not here to talk, are you?" Samuel asked. She shook her head. "Then let me show you." He rose with a grunt. Cane tapping softly on the wooden floor. He moved toward the kitchen, then opened a door that led down. The basement. Maya followed, her heart pounding in her ears. It was cold and dry down there. The walls were lined with dusty shelves, paint cans, old tools. A furnace growled softly in the corner, casting dull orange light. Samuel pointed. There! A patch of floor near the back was cleaner than the rest. Newer cement. Maya stepped closer, her breath fog in the cold. Underneath, the voice said, "She's waiting." She turned to Samuel. "How long?" His face fell. 21 years. Maya sank to her knees, running her fingers over the concrete. "Why?" He didn't answer at first. Then quietly, "I didn't kill her." "Then who did?" His jaw tensed. "You already know. Jason. He brought her here," Samuel said. Said she was drunk. Hurt. I didn't ask questions. I didn't stop him. I just went upstairs. "He left her to die," the voice whispered. "Alone. In the dark." Samuel sat down heavily on a nearby stool. I came back the next morning. She was cold, and he was gone. Maya stared at him. "And you buried her." I panicked. He didn't panic. The voice snarled. "He erased her." He laughed. Maya's hands curled into fists. "You could have saved her." "I know." The rest of the day passed in a blur. Police arrived. Again. She didn't need to tell them this time. They already knew her. They found the remains beneath the concrete slab, just as the whisper had said. Celine's body, curled like a secret in the dark, along with a necklace Maya had seen in one of the old photographs. Small silver moon, cracked down the center. Samuel Beck was arrested, charged with obstruction, evidence tampering, accomplice to murder. He didn't resist. He didn't even speak. Maya went home, sat in the center of her living room, waited, but the voice was gone. For the first time in months, there was silence. It scared her more than the whisper ever had. She wandered the apartment like something was missing, something vital. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Hours passed. Still nothing. The next night, she dreamed of the orchard again, but it was empty. No grave, no bones, no whispering. She woke up crying. Days passed, then a week. The silence stayed. The world returned to normal, at least on the surface. People smiled at her on the street. Strangers shook her hand. Professors gave her space. Olivia checked in more often, but Maya felt like she was floating above it all, watching her life happen without her. She began walking at night, long walks through the city, past silent houses, past sleeping windows. She always ended up back at the bookstore. It had been closed since Jason died, boarded up, dusty, but one night, the front door was open. She stepped inside. It smelled the same, paper, glue, old stories. But the air was wrong. Heavy. She moved through the dark aisles until she reached the back room. The desk was gone, the drawer broken, and on the floor, a single red notebook. Not hers. A different one. She picked it up. It was filled with names. Not just women. Children, men, elderly. Each name had a location, a time, a cause, a pattern. And at the bottom of the last page, "It's not over." Maya staggered back. The voice returned. But it wasn't Celine. It was deeper, colder, masculine. She was only the beginning. They thought she was the only one. They were wrong. The air around her thickened. The lights flickered. She looked down, and her own name had appeared in the notebook, written in red ink. Right below it, "Listener." She ran home. When she reached her apartment, the lights were on, but she hadn't left them that way. Inside, nothing was out of place, except her mirror. There were words written across it in fog. "Help them." Her breath caught. Behind her reflection stood a dozen blurred faces, watching, waiting. The fog on the mirror cleared slowly, but the faces behind Maya's reflection lingered. They weren't just blurred, they were wounded. Hollow eyes, sunken cheeks, gaping mouths locked in frozen screams. One had a bruised neck. Another had wrists bound in rope burns. One child's face was half gone, eaten away by time or something worse. They didn't speak, but Maya knew what they wanted. The whisper returned, soft, layered, not a single voice anymore, but many. We remember. We never left. You see us now, so help us be seen. She stepped back from the mirror, shaking, heart hammering against her ribs. I don't know how, she whispered. You will. The red notebook had changed. What had once been a record of Celine's pain now grew daily. More names, more places, more signs. When Maya blinked, the ink seemed to shift. When she looked away and back again, whole pages appeared. Victims, crimes, hidden truths. Most were old, cold cases, forgotten files. But some were recent. Within days, Maya began seeing the names in the news, runaways, unexplained disappearances, missing under unknown circumstances. She checked them against the notebook. They matched. It was as if the whisper knew what would happen before it was reported. One entry stopped her cold. Danielle Grace, age 9, taken from Forest View Elementary, 2:47 p.m. Maya read it 3 times. The timestamp was today. She dropped the notebook and grabbed her phone. Her fingers flew, typing Forest View Elementary. It was across the city. No news articles yet. No Amber Alert. No reports. But the voice whispered again. She's not gone yet. You have time. Maya didn't think. She just ran. The city blurred past the window of the cab. Maya's hand shook as she clutched the notebook, flipping pages. Following clues had fed her. Blue car, dented hood, license plate starting with AVH. It was madness. She knew it, but when she looked up, there it was. A blue sedan, parked half up the curb, the engine running. A man in a gray jacket sitting behind the wheel, nervously checking the rear-view mirror. Maya told the driver to stop. She didn't wait. She threw open the door and sprinted. The man saw her coming in panic, trying to start the car, but Maya slammed her body against the hood, screaming. Others on the street turned. 2 parents walking their children froze. Someone shouted. A bystander grabbed the driver's door and yanked it open. The man bolted, but not before Maya saw what was in the back seat. A little girl, gagged, crying, hands tied. Danielle Grace. The police came. The girl was rescued. The suspect caught 2 hours later, thanks to security cameras and multiple witnesses. Maya was hailed a hero, but she didn't feel like one. That night, her mirror showed her 12 new faces, and the whisper didn't stop. The news called her the haunted hero. Talk shows wanted her. Documentaries offered money. She refused all of them because the voice had grown louder again, more urgent, more names in the notebook. Some crossed out, some underlined. Not all can be saved, but they must be found. They deserve to be seen. Maya barely slept. She traveled constantly. Cities, towns, sometimes rural backroads. She stopped pretending to be normal. This was her life now. Listening, following, remembering. One case led her to a farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. No reception, no neighbors, just the whisper and the wind. She broke into a side door, armed with only a flashlight and the red notebook. The house was empty, but it remembered. Old blood in the cracks of the floorboards. Shackles in the basement. In the crawl space beneath the stairs, she found a box of bones. 6 skulls. 3 child-sized. She called it in. She left before the cops arrived. Another night. She stood in the pouring rain outside a church, waiting for the caretaker to leave. The whisper had spoken clearly. He confesses with his mouth, but hides with his hands. Inside the church's locked storage room, behind him those in old pews, she found dozens of Polaroids, names written in Sharpie, dates, faces frozen in fear. She sent them anonymously to every news outlet in the city. The priest was arrested a week later. It didn't always end in justice. Sometimes she was too late. Sometimes the names disappeared before she could reach them. And sometimes the voices screamed so loudly it knocked her unconscious. She'd wake up hours later with no memory of where she'd been, only bruises, dirt under her nails, and pages filled in the notebook. Once, she woke to find an entire wall of her apartment covered in names, written in her handwriting. She didn't remember doing it. She didn't erase it. Then the whispers started changing again. One voice clearer than the rest. Not desperate. Not sad. Commanding. Authoritative. There are more like you. Others who listen. Others who hunt. Maya began dreaming of strangers. People with notebooks like hers. Some younger. Some old. All haunted. All chasing shadows in the night. In one dream, she stood in a room with 9 others. None spoke, but they all nodded at her. Then she woke up. The notebook now had 10 new pages, each with a single word. Awaken. She searched for them, these others, and slowly she began finding signs. Graffiti under bridges. The dead are still speaking. Symbols carved into trees she hadn't noticed before. A flyer stapled to a telephone pole. Have you heard the whisper? She began marking these signs in the back of the notebook. She wasn't alone anymore. And somehow, that was even scarier. The mirror changed again. This time, instead of fog, it bled. Crimson lines dripped across the glass, spelling one phrase. Not all whispers want to be heard. She tried wiping it away, but the blood smeared. Stained. Stayed. One night, she returned to her apartment to find a package on her doorstep. No return address. Inside, a photo, black and white. Jason as a child, standing beside someone Maya had never seen before, an older boy with hollow eyes and a twisted smile. On the back of the photo, he was just the beginning. Underneath that, the whisper maker. Maya sat on the floor, breathing hard, notebook in her lap. The voice didn't speak. But for the first time, she felt it. Something waking up. Something older than Celine. Older than Jason. Older than every name in the notebook. A source. A beginning. A creature that didn't whisper to warn, but to feed. The phrase echoed in her head for hours. The whisper maker. She didn't know what it meant, but the fear it stirred inside her was ancient. Like her soul recognized it even if her mind didn't. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. The faces in the mirror were gone, replaced by a shadow that moved just behind her reflection. It didn't whisper. It watched. The red notebook now refused to close. Its pages fluttered even without wind, like something inside it was alive and agitated. A new name had written itself across the first page, in large, dark red letters. The maker, no age, no location, no date, just that name. Maya couldn't look at it for long. The ink bled when she stared at it, bled like fresh wounds tearing across the page. By morning, her phone buzzed with a message from a block number, just a set of coordinates. She almost didn't go, but the whisper returned as soon as she hesitated. He knows you're listening now. If you stop, he'll come find you. So she went. The location was a rotting motel deep in the woods, an hour outside the city. The building leaned like it had grown tired of standing. Half the windows were boarded up. Vines crawled along the walls. The parking lot was cracked and overrun with weeds. The whisper was faint now, like it was holding its breath. Room 106. That was all Maya knew. She walked the hallways slowly, every floorboard groaning like a warning. Her flashlight flickered as she reached the door. The number was missing, but something had been scratched into the wood where the numbers should have been. He makes them all listen. Her hand shook as she pushed the door open. The smell hit first, mold, iron, rot. The room had been abandoned for years, but someone had been here recently. The bed was stripped, the carpet torn. Every wall was covered in pages. Not paper, skin-thin parchment, rough and yellowed. Thousands of names. Scribbled, crossed out, circled. She saw Jason's name. Samuel's, Celine's, her own, and others. So many others. The floor creaked behind her. She turned. There was no one there. But the light in the room changed, dimmed to a strange blue hue, like moonlight filtered through deep water. Her flashlight died in her hand. Then the voices returned. Not whispers. Chanting. Low, rhythmic, ancient. He speaks. They obey. He speaks. They obey. He speaks. And then silence. A door appeared in the far wall. It hadn't been there before. It was made of black wood, carved with twisting runes that made her eyes hurt to look at. The doorknob pulsed like a heartbeat. Maya didn't want to go through it, but her hand moved anyway. She opened the door. What lay beyond wasn't real, or at least it wasn't this world. The hallway was long, endless, with no ceiling, only darkness above. The walls were mirrors on either side, each reflecting different versions of her. In one, she was covered in blood. In another, her eyes were missing. One mirror showed her smiling, eyes glowing red. Another showed her screaming, arms chained to a wall. And through it all, the chant returned. He speaks. You become. He speaks. You become. She ran. At the end of the hall was a room. Stone. Circular. Lit by a fire that gave no heat. In the center was a throne, not gold or regal, but bone. Human spines and ribs. Skulls fused together like clay. Sitting atop, it was a figure wrapped in tattered cloth and shadow. No face, just a mouth. A mouth that stretched too wide, filled with teeth that never ended. And from it came the voice, not just a whisper, but the whisper. Every voice Maya had ever heard layered together into one impossible sound. You follow my echo. You wore my mark. You made my whispers truth. Maya fell to her knees. She couldn't speak. The red notebook flew from her hand, landing at the figure's feet. It opened on its own. The pages began flipping, faster and faster, until they turned black. You were never the listener. You were the speaker. You spread me. The voice laughed. A deep, wet, monstrous sound. Maya screamed and bolted. She didn't remember how she got out, just that she ran. Through smoke, through fire, through screams. She burst out of the motel, gasping, falling into the dirt. It was morning. The motel was gone. No building. No road. Just forest. She looked down at her hands. The red notebook was still there, but now it was bound to her skin, fused like a tattoo, pages embedded in her palms, words crawling across her arms like veins. She cried, screamed, dug at her skin. It didn't come off. She wandered for hours, barefoot, broken, until a ranger found her near the highway. He asked her what happened. She looked at him, and without meaning to, she whispered. She didn't know what she said, but the man's eyes glazed. He dropped his radio and walked into the trees. Maya stood in the forest, hands bleeding, eyes wide. The whisper was inside her now, not a voice beside her ear, but her own. She turned her face to the wind and spoke again, this time on purpose. She told the trees what had been done. She told the world about the hidden ones. She told the dead that they were seen. And the world listened. The next week vanished in fragments. Voices, shadows, trembling hands, sirens she couldn't remember calling. Maya was in a hospital bed. White walls, white sheets, white light that buzzed overhead like flies. She didn't remember how she got there. The nurses didn't speak to her. When they did, their words were muffled, like her ears were full of cotton. But the whisper? It was clear. It had changed tone again. No longer asking, no longer warning. Now commanding. Write the names. Speak the forgotten. Open the door for them. And she did. They gave her a pencil and notebook, hoping she'd journal her thoughts. Within hours, she had filled every page, not with stories, with names. Hundreds. Some she knew, some she didn't, some not even human sounding. A doctor tried to take the notebook. She whispered something to him. He dropped it and started crying, and wouldn't stop. They moved her to isolation after that. At night, she stared into the small mirror bolted above the sink. The shadow behind her reflection was gone. Now she was a shadow. Her eyes no longer reflected light. She began to notice symbols appearing on her skin, like bruises and spiraling patterns. Her veins darkened, shifting as though ink flowed through them instead of blood. A nurse screamed when she saw them. She was transferred to a different facility. But Maya didn't care, because the whisper gave her a new task. There are doors in every mind. We found ours, helped the others open theirs. The red notebook returned. She hadn't seen it since the motel. She woke one night to find it lying beside her on the sterile hospital floor. It pulsed. She touched it, and her room shook. Alarms rang. Lights flickered. And Maya remembered everything. Jason's hands in her head. Celine's screaming voice. The motel. The throne of bone. The whisper maker. But she also remembered something else. The others. The 9 she had dreamed of. She had seen their faces now, and she knew where to find them. Escape was easy. The whisper told her how. A single phrase to one orderly, a different one to the security guard. When the doors opened, she didn't run. She walked right into the night. She traveled for weeks. The notebook led her. Every town, every stop, there was someone waiting. A painter who saw faces in his canvas. A deaf boy who spoke in dreams. A woman who only slept in graveyards because the dead told her secrets. They were broken like her, but they heard. They had been waiting for someone to speak the first word. Maya did, and they followed. She gathered them in an abandoned cathedral at the city's edge, a forgotten place where the wind never moved and the shadows always whispered. They called it the Mouth. 10 chairs formed a circle beneath the cracked stained glass. Each of them brought an object. A bone, a mirror shard, a burned book, a melted cassette tape. Tokens, remnants, anchors for the whisper to hold on to. Maya brought the notebook. Together, they opened it. They didn't read from it. They listened, and the notebook did not speak in words this time. It screamed. Every light in the cathedral burst. The stained glass shattered inward, and something entered, not a figure, not a demon, but a presence that made the walls bleed and time bend. They didn't run. They let it fill them, because it was truth. And truth, Maya now understood, was not beautiful. It was hungry. Each of them became a whisper, not just receivers, transmitters. They went back into the world, scattered like seeds. Maya watched them leave one by one. The boy walked into the ocean, head bowed. The painter disappeared into a crowd, and everyone who looked at him forgot him instantly. The graveyard woman smiled at Maya and vanished like smoke. Maya was the last. She stayed, because the mouth was still open, and something else wanted to come through. She sat alone in the center of the cathedral for 3 days. No food, no water, only the notebook in her lap, and the voices circling her mind like vultures. On the 3rd night, it happened. The earth split beneath her chair. A stairway of ribs and ash spiraled downward. The whisper grew silent. And then a voice, not layered, not distorted, just one terrible voice said, "Come home." Maya stood and descended. What lay below was not hell. It was memory, a chamber of all thoughts lost. Prayers never answered. Names shouted once in the dark and forgotten. She saw Jason there, still whispering, still weeping. But something else stood behind him. The maker. He stepped forward, face still hidden beneath the cloth. But Maya knew. She whispered his name, and the world shook. He flinched, just a moment, but enough. He wasn't invincible. Not to her. Not anymore. She stepped toward him. The notebook in her hands now bled light. The whisper maker recoiled. She opened the first page. And read aloud. Not a spell. Not a curse. Just a single name. Celine. The air snapped. Her voice echoed in every direction at once. The figure screamed. As it did, thousands of faces appeared in the dark. Every soul that had ever whispered, every lost name, every forgotten cry. And they answered. They surged forward, not to destroy, but to be heard. And Maya let them use her voice. She was no longer just Maya. She was every child that had disappeared, every cry that had been ignored, Every mother that had screamed at an empty sky. Every whisper that no one had wanted to hear. And he, the maker, was drowned in them. Smothered by the truth, he tried to hide behind madness. When the echoes faded, he was gone, only ashes, and silence. For the first time in years, silence. Maya climbed back up the bone stairs. The cathedral was gone, but dawn had come. The notebook, empty. The voices, quiet. But deep in her soul, something new stirred. Not fear, not command, but choice. She was free, and now she had a decision. To forget, or to build something better from the silence left behind. Maya wandered through the early morning fog. The grass wet beneath her bare feet. The city skyline loomed ahead, but it looked different now, softer, quieter. The voices were gone. No whispers, no commands. For the first time in months, maybe years, her mind was her own, but freedom felt unfamiliar, like a coat that didn't quite fit. The red notebook, once fused to her skin, was now just leather and paper again, lying quietly in her coat pocket. The pages were blank, save for a single line on the first. You choose what comes next. She wasn't sure whether it was a gift or a warning. She made her way back to her apartment. It was untouched. Dust coated the windowsills. The mirrors were draped in sheets. The clock on the wall still blinked 12 o'clock. No one had been there in months. She walked to the mirror in the hallway, the one where it had all started. She pulled the sheet away, and for the first time, she saw just herself. No shadows behind her. No second reflection. Just her own exhausted, scarred, unblinking face. She whispered just to test it. "Hello." Silence. She laughed. A real, broken laugh that turned into tears. But silence doesn't last. That night, the nightmares returned. Not the same as before. No whispers, but something far worse. A void. A world where she could scream, but no sound came out. She walked endless hallways lined with empty doors. Behind each was a person from her past. Jason, Celine, her mother, her childhood friend Ben. But none of them spoke. They stared at her, mouths sewn shut. And then she came to the final door. Her own. When she opened it, she was standing in her apartment again. But something was wrong. A mirror was broken. And the voice she thought was gone spoke once more, not inside her head, but behind her. You close the door, but not all doors stay closed. She turned. Nothing there, but her reflection smiled and waved. She woke up screaming, drenched in sweat. The red notebook was open beside her on the pillow. The pages had changed. New writing now. A list. 10 names. Each one followed by a number. Ben, 6 days. Celine, 4 days. Jason, 2 days. Dr. Neva, 1 day. You, 0 days. Her heart froze. She hadn't written that, but she understood it. Each name represented someone who had been pulled in by the whispers. People she'd met. People she had tried to save. People who were now marked. And at the bottom, beneath the list, were 3 more words. Round 2 begins. That same night, her phone lit up. No number. No message. Just a sound. Breathing. Shallow. Wet. Like someone was just behind the speaker, almost too afraid to exhale. She tossed the phone away. But every screen in her apartment flickered on. TV, laptop, microwave clock. And across each, in bleeding red text, "You're not the only voice." Maya ran. She didn't know where. Just away. But the city had changed. She felt it immediately. The air buzzed. People looked wrong. Their eyes tracked her, even when she wasn't near. Their movements were twitchy, puppet-like. She passed a man at a bus stop muttering to himself. As she passed, he whispered, "He's learning to speak again." She stopped. "What did you say?" He looked up at her. Eyes gone. Hollow sockets filled with dark liquid. Not everyone forgets. She fled into an alley. She wasn't alone. 3 others stood there, motionless, backlit by a flickering street lamp. She recognized one of them. The painter. The one who had disappeared after the ritual at the cathedral. He was different now. His skin was cracked like porcelain, and something slithered beneath the surface. "Maya," he said, smiling. "You left the door open." "I closed it," she said. "He's gone." "No, you're gone. He's still here." He stepped forward, reaching into his coat, pulled out a canvas, held it up. It was her face, but split down the middle. One side her, one side him. She turned to run, but the other two figures blocked the exit. They didn't move, but the whisper came back, curling around her spine like smoke. Not inside her head, around her. She opened the door. Now she is the key. She thought she could shut it, but now it follows her. Maya screamed. The sound shattered windows above her. The figures flinched, and in that moment she remembered the throne, the chance, the way she had drowned the whisper maker in the voices of the forgotten. She didn't need to run. She needed to fight. She closed her eyes and focused, reached inward, not to the voice, but to the void, the space where all the whispers had once lived. And she called them back, but not as servants, as witnesses. All those who had been silenced, drowned, buried. She pulled them forward like dragging up bones from a grave. And they came. The air around her rippled. The alley grew cold. The painter dropped his canvas. The other two screamed and fell to the ground, clawing at their ears. Maya stepped forward. "You're not the only voice either," she said, "but I'm the only one who speaks the truth." And with a wave of her hand, she unmade them. Not killed, unmade, like they had never been. The alley was empty. She collapsed to her knees, trembling. She wasn't human anymore. Not fully, and neither were the others. Whoever, whatever, was waking now, it wasn't done. This wasn't about the whisper maker anymore. Something older was watching, waiting, listening. The notebook pulsed in her pocket. She pulled it out. A new message appeared. He was just the first voice. There are more, and some are already speaking through you. The next day, Maya awoke in an abandoned church on the city's edge. Its windows shattered, its pews rotting, and its altar scorched with strange black symbols. She didn't remember walking there, but the notebook was open on the pulpit in front of her, and the air was thick with smoke that smelled like burned hair and rusted iron. Written in her handwriting across the fresh page, "You're not the voice. You're the mouth." She stepped away, trembling. All around her, the world had started to change again, more subtly this time. Graffiti along alley walls shifted when no one looked. Billboards displayed messages only she could read. Children at bus stops laughed too loudly, their voices echoing longer than they should. People were hearing things, and they were answering. The first came to her that night. A girl, no older than 16, eyes wide and haunted. She appeared outside Maya's apartment, barefoot, soaked in rain, whispering something over and over. Maya opened the door. The girl didn't look up. She only said, "There's something in the static. It knows my name." Then she passed out. Maya carried her inside, dried her hair, and wrapped her in blankets. The girl didn't sleep. Her eyes never closed. When Maya asked her name, she didn't respond. She only said, "You called." I answered. And from that night forward, Maya wasn't alone anymore. They kept coming. A man who hadn't spoken in 12 years, but now hummed a tune only Maya recognized. A woman who dreamt of a staircase, spiraling through her backyard into a lake that wasn't there. A twin who claimed his brother had vanished into the mirror, but left his shadow behind. Each arrived without explanation. Each knew Maya. They formed a circle of silence and stare. Like disciples, like witnesses. But to what? She didn't yet understand. By the third week, the veil between worlds had thinned. Every night at 3:03 a.m., Maya heard footsteps outside her door. Not human. Too many legs. Too wet. She stopped answering the knock. She watched from the peephole instead. There was never anyone there. But the paint on the hallway walls peeled in new shapes after every visit. Eyes. Mouths. Chains. One morning, she found a key on her doorstep. Ancient. Covered in ash. Attached was a note, scrawled in something not quite ink. "The next one is in your mirror." Maya took the key, placed it on her nightstand, and stared at the mirror for hours. Nothing moved. No shadow behind her. No second reflection. But the longer she stared, the more wrong her own eyes looked. Too still, too patient. And then, without blinking, her reflection tilted its head. Maya didn't, but she did. Then her mouth opened, and the whisper came back. You were the first to listen. You will be the last to speak. And then the door will open forever. She smashed the mirror. It didn't help. The whispers echoed from the glass shards. The mirror wasn't the source. She was. The next night, she gathered her circle in the church again. There were now 20 of them, each marked in some way. Scars that weren't there before, shadows that didn't belong, teeth that seemed just a little too sharp. They sat in silence until Maya spoke. This isn't about him anymore. The whisper maker was a gatekeeper, but the gate was already rotting. We opened it. A girl near the back nodded. I hear them when I breathe, she whispered. They're inside the air now. Another man added, they don't want just voices. They want hosts. Maya swallowed. Then we close it. This time for real. She didn't know how, but the red notebook did. It revealed a new ritual. This time not to listen, but to seal. It required 13 voices, a circle of silence, and one willing to speak the final truth aloud, to become the last whisper ever heard. Everyone volunteered. Maya refused them. This is mine, she said. I opened it. I close it. They didn't argue, only watched as she prepared. The ritual took place beneath the city, a forgotten subway station hidden below layers of concrete and time. The circle was drawn in chalk and bone. 13 stood with their backs to the center, facing the dark tunnels. Each held an object of memory, a locket, a photo, a lock of hair, a coin once swallowed by accident. Maya stood in the middle, notebook in hand. She opened her mouth, and the final words began. But the whisper fought back. It screamed through the tunnels, rattling rails and shattering bulbs. The 13 began to shake, some vomiting black bile, others clawing at their ears. But they stood. They endured. And Maya screamed the last truth into the void. You are not needed. The walls groaned. The tracks cracked. A hole opened above them, sky leaking through as the reality was collapsing. And then, a final sound, like a breath being sucked in after drowning. And then, silence. Real silence. The light returned. The 13 collapsed. Maya knelt in the circle, blood leaking from her ears, mouth, and eyes. The notebook burned in her hands. But she was smiling. It was over, or so she thought. Back in her apartment. The next morning, she awoke to a knock at the door. A soft, polite knock. 3 times. She opened it. A child stood there, no older than 10, eyes wide, empty. Maya, the boy said, holding out a tape recorder, you forgot this. She took it, pressed play, and heard her own voice, whispering, the same words that had started it all, the same voice that had cursed her from the mirror. There's a whisper in my head that isn't mine. She looked up. The boy was gone. Maya stood in the doorway, the tape recorder still playing in her hand. Her own voice echoed back at her, warped by static but unmistakable. There's a whisper in my head that isn't mine. She dropped it. The recorder hit the floor and burst open. No tape inside, just an empty shell. But the sound continued, from inside the walls, from beneath the floorboards, from inside her head. She screamed and clutched her skull, slamming the door shut behind her. But she already knew. The ritual had sealed the gate, not the gate. That night, sleep didn't come. And when she finally drifted off, the dream was different. She wasn't in the city. She wasn't in the church. She was inside a black ocean, floating in nothing, with no sky and no floor. All around her, faces drifted in the water, some familiar, others not. They were all whispering, in perfect unison. You are the voice now. She tried to swim, to rise, to scream, but no sound escaped. And then she felt a pull, downward, into the abyss beneath her, not like drowning, like descending into her own mind. She woke up gasping, fingers bleeding from digging into her scalp during the night. The mirror above her dresser had a crack running through it, but she didn't remember hanging it. She had destroyed the last one. She approached it cautiously, her reflection distorted and twitching slightly out of sync. Then her reflection smiled, and this time it spoke first. They were never whispers. They were seeds. We were planted in you, and now we bloom. Maya stumbled backward, knocking over a lamp. The apartment darkened, and in the shadows, shapes began to move. Whispers slithered across the walls like insects. The furniture bent inward. Her windows pulsed with wet breath. And the notebook, reborn, untouched by fire, lay open on the floor. A new page, blank, except for a circle drawn in blood, and a sentence beneath. Say it again. She didn't want to, but her mouth opened anyway. And she said it, not whispered, declared. There's a whisper in my head that isn't mine. The walls sighed, and the ceiling cracked open like a mouth. The city began to fold inward. News reports spoke of people vanishing mid-sentence. Entire block silent. All radios broadcasting nothing but breath. Children drawing spiral mouths on walls. And Maya? Maya wandered, silent, a prophet of a voice that could not be silenced. She found the girl again, the first girl, who'd appeared soaked in rain. Only now the girl had no mouth, just a smooth stretch of skin. But her eyes spoke, tears of ink. She handed Maya a mirror. It was round, silver-framed, small enough to hold in one palm. Maya looked. This time, she didn't see herself. She saw him, not the whisper maker. Something worse, a being made of mouths, stitched together by silence. It looked at her, smiled, and said, "You have been a good seed." She dropped the mirror, but the ground didn't catch it. It kept falling, into nothing, until it shattered in the space where her thoughts once lived. And in that moment, Maya understood. She wasn't the mouth. She was the soil. The whispers weren't invading. They were harvested from her. Every word, every thought, every scream had fed it. And now it was awake. The people who followed her? Gone. Taken. Absorbed. Each one now a root, buried in the foundation of the city. The skyscrapers bent unnaturally. The lights blinked in patterns that spelled names. The pigeons flew in spirals overhead. Every reflection whispered now, even puddles. Maya returned to Cathedral, now a ruin split by a jagged black tree growing from the altar. It wasn't made of wood. It was made of voices. She approached it, hollow, resigned. At the base of the tree sat a girl. No older than Maya had been when it all started. She looked up. Her eyes weren't eyes. They were small, spinning mouths. The girl stood and asked, "Do you still hear it?" Maya didn't answer. The girl smiled. "You don't have to. You are it." And then she stepped into Maya's shadow and vanished. The city grew quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Wrong quiet. The kind that stretches for miles and carries weight like fog. And beneath the silence, Maya walked. No longer hunted. No longer afraid. She wore a red coat stitched with names of those she couldn't save. And on her back, the notebook, blank again, waiting. One final entry appeared. She didn't write it, but it bore her handwriting. The world hears itself now, and the silence is listening back. She sat on a bench as the sun rose. Birds flew overhead in crooked patterns. A man passed by her. He paused, stared, then asked, "Excuse me, have we met?" Maya smiled, not warmly, not cruelly, but knowingly. "Not yet," she said, and the whisper passed from her mouth into his mind. His eyes glazed over, and he walked on. Another seed. The voice in Maya's head had never left. It had only grown quiet to listen. Now it sang softly, endlessly, a lullaby of beginnings. And as Maya sat there, surrounded by a world that would never be silent again, she whispered the first line of the new song. There's a whisper in your head that isn't yours. And someone, somewhere, woke up, screaming. The end.